Hello, my name's Tim Burbage, welcome to Tim Burbage Reads, and today I'm going to be doing a review for Travellers in the Third Reich, The Rise of Fascism Through the Eyes of Everyday People by Julia Boyd. This was my November mystery book challenge, so my friend Craig donated some heavy reading. The reason why this was for the 11th of November, it was Armistice Day. There's a little poppy that my wife drew. Let me read the back. Without the benefit of hindsight, how do you interpret what's right in front of your eyes? Travellers in the Third Reich is an extraordinary history of the rise of the Nazis based on fascinating first-hand accounts, including students, politicians, musicians, scholars, athletes, journalists, tourists, even celebrities like Charles Lindbergh and Samuel Beckett. Their experiences create a remarkable three-dimensional picture of Germany under Hitler, one so palpable that the reader will feel, hear, even breathe the atmosphere. These are the accidental eyewitnesses to history, disturbing, absurd, moving, and ranging from the deeply trivial to the deeply tragic. Their tales give a fresh insight into the complexities of the Third Reich, its paradoxes, and its ultimate destruction. So, this is, a pretty heavy book. One, because it's big, and two, what it's about. I know about World War II, but I was never really a big history buff. I dropped history in year 9. I didn't do history at GCSE because I didn't really like my history teacher. Primarily because my history teacher didn't really like my older brother, and so I kind of carried that through. And I knew, you know about Hitler, you learn about World War II at school a lot, or I did anyway. So I knew about his rise to power, I knew some of the things. This went into way more detail. So this starts, it's told chronologically, and it starts pretty soon after World War I is finished. 1919. And then we have the Weimar Republic, which was when Germany was recovering from war reparations and it had lost the Rhineland, but it was a haven of arts and music and drama and was actually a very quite nice place to travel to. And the whole thing is told through, travellers, tourists' perspective. And Germany, people were quite easy to forgive Germany for World War I because it wasn't really Germany's fault. It was very easy to pin on the leader, the Kaiser. It was him. The German people who were fighting, it wasn't their fault. There was never really much animosity towards Germany, and people loved travelling because Germany's a beautiful country. I've never been, but, the Black Forest, the mountains, very, very beautiful. And so people were quite happy to travel to Germany straight away after World War I. There were some Quakers went there to help deliver food to people because the German people were suffering in large parts. I knew about hyperinflation. I didn't know how much of it was tied to the Wall Street crash in 1929. With that, America called in basically all its loans that it had given to Germany. And so Germany went from, okay, we're borrowing a lot of money, but we're doing okay, we're getting better, to the bottom just falling out. And that led to National Socialism. I hadn't realised that the Wall Street crash was such a big domino in that chain. So that was interesting to know. One thing as well that was interesting was even straight away after World War I, there was anti-Semitism in Germany. Posters saying, Jews represent 2% of the population, but 20% of the leaders or major corporation owners and things like that, which is still prominent now. You see Hitler's rise to power, you see the attempted putsch, you see him becoming chancellor, you see him then taking over, you then see concentration camps, and you see labour camps, and you see how Nazi Germany developed through the Hitler Youth. Then you see the war happen. The war actually takes up quite a small part of the book. Most of the book takes place between the two world wars. And you see where National Socialism came from, of fear of Bolshevism, fear of communism. Germany kept repeating to itself and to its neighbours that Germany was the blanket protecting Europe from Russia. It's interesting how National Socialism and fascism and socialism and communism are all very similar because it's about controlling people. That's what was happening here. You see that as tourists come, most of the tourists here are wealthy people. Foreign travel was not something that a lot of ordinary folk could do in this time. And so it's a lot of posh British aristocrats, some of whom loved the Nazis. Absolutely loved them. Unity Mitford, who is the daughter of Lord and Lady Redesdale, who I actually have a book by on my Kindle, Tales from Old Japan, which I wanted to read and haven't got to yet. Yeah, she's like full in it, you know. She loves all this stuff. And you see other, you know, rich half-wit sons go travelling, because what are rich half-wit sons for? Go travelling and experience it. Majority of people travel because Germany is a beautiful country and they have very nice things to say about the German people. There is also an undercurrent in a lot of this of anti-Semitism from people. People going, oh, I know it's a bit over the top, but... and then making their case. And hard to read that. People forgiving of the Nazi regime because they held their own anti-Semitism. It was rife. And I think Kristallnacht was the point where people went, oh no, that's a bit too much now. And it's like, well, it'd been going on for years. And there's actually a really good, towards the end, there's a good chapter of this, you know, hockey school trip or something going through Germany. And it was like, oh, this was the point where Jewish people with non-Jewish names had to change their name, first name, to Israel or Sarah to make it clear that they were Jewish. And then, oh, they went up and they did this and they saw a concert. It was really nice. And they announced that Jewish doctors weren't allowed to practice medicine anymore. It was really hard-hitting how divorced from reality tourists are, and people who will travel anywhere to have a nice time and ignore all the politics involved. And it makes me think, because I am a tourist a lot of the time. I like traveling. I've just come back from a trip with my family, and we go on holiday to America a lot. And with what's happened in America and what America have chosen to do, could I end up being one of these people who go, well, I'm just going to ignore the politics because I really want to go and it's a lovely place to visit and the people are really friendly. I don't mind what they voted for, but the people are really friendly to me. Am I going to be one of these people? Am I looking at history repeating itself? That's what I brought to this book. It was interesting. It was engaging. It did go on a bit long. It is pretty long. There was an interesting part about the 1936 Olympics, how everyone knows that Hitler got the Olympics and he was going to show that the Aryan race were truly the best. And then Jesse Owens came and ran faster than anyone else, and Hitler wouldn't shake Jesse Owens' hand or something like that. You know, that's kind of the famous story. But I learnt a lot about the Berlin Olympics. First of all, I didn't even know that Nazi Germany had the Winter Olympics as well in that year. Come on, IOC. What are you doing? I also learnt that all of the signs about where Jews were not allowed to go were all taken down for the weeks of the Olympics, and nobody really knew about it. So tourists there were like, oh, I had a great time. Oh, I've heard there was loads of anti-Semitism stuff, but I didn't really see anything. And then one guy stayed afterwards because he was studying there, and then literally 2 days after the Olympics had finished, all the signs had gone back up. And he was like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. Another thing is how black Americans liked being in Germany. Jesse Owens and black athletes liked being in Germany because they were treated better than they were in the US. What does that say about the United States at that time? I think one of the quotes is like, yeah, they're doing all this stuff, but at least I can sit on the front of a bus. Like, and that's really interesting, is that these tourists are making a choice, or their schoolmasters are making a choice to sell a bit of their soul, ultimately, to go travelling to a nice place. And people rationalise that in many ways. And what people really prioritise is dependent on who you are and what you've experienced. A black American athlete prioritised going to Nazi Germany because he could ride on the front of a bus and compete in the Olympics. That's how important that was to him. And he viewed that as a very good thing. Very interesting. Yes, this is my November book and this is the end of December. I finished this in like mid-December, but we went on holiday and I haven't filmed it for a while. But it is hard to read at points. It's quite brutal. It's very dense. It's also non-fiction. I generally just read non-fiction slower. I'm not like, wow, I really need to know what happened next. I like read 20 pages and I go, oh, that was interesting. Put it down, you know, come back the next day, that kind of thing, rather than I need to know what happens next. Yeah, so thank you, Craig, for lending me this book. And I think I gave this 4 stars because, Yeah, it was interesting. Didn't have that narrative through line that some non-fiction has that I really, really enjoy. So, yeah, 4 stars. And let me know if you've read this book. Please give a like. Please give a thumbs up. I do appreciate it. Comment below if you've read this book. Comment below what you think about tourists going to ultimately bad places for the sake of a nice holiday. Quite an interesting ethical question. And I'll see you in the next one. Now, get out of my house!